tasted your heart. You have been with them, but you are still of us. Do not deny the challenge of your destiny. Get off your knees and soar. Open your eyes and let the dream take flight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fully Functional, a TNG podcast. I'm Maggie, joined by Jeff and Dory.
Yo.
Jeff and I are huge Star Trek nerds. Dory's a Star Trek novice. We're going on a journey through Star Trek The Next Generation, episode by episode. Today, we'll be discussing the Season 1 episode, Heart of Glory. Original air date March 19th, 1988. And we'll go to Dory for the recap.
Okay, so we are flying in space, as one does in this show. And there's like a battle in the neutral zone. So the Enterprise arrives and they see this like freighter just floating around, and it's Tellarian, I believe.
Yeah.
And they are like, okay, there's like some life forms, we should go in. So Geordi, Data, and Riker transport in, and they're searching around, and we also get to see what Geordi sees, which is, man, what a trip and a half.
Yeah.
I thought this episode was gonna go a really different direction for a second, because when Geordi is looking around and you see like the figure and Picard's like, who's that? I was like, oh my god, is this a ghost, or is this like a villain in like a cloaking device?
It's a ghost
and
story.
We're not supposed to see him, and then Geordi's like, oh, it's Riker. And I was like, oh, okay.
It's weird because I don't think they used Jonathan Frakes or Brent Spiner in those shots.
Oh, they might not have.
They look nothing like them, but
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. It was cool. It was really neat to see what Geordi sees. Okay, so they go through, they find...
And Picard gets really excited about it, too.
Oh, yeah. Picard is pumped. Okay.
Extraordinary.
So they find the 3 Klingons. And I think this is like, other than Worf, this is our first Klingon encounter. Is that right?
This is our first Klingon encounter outside of a movie since the original series.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So there's 3 guys. There's one that's dying, who we don't get the name of, and then there's Chorus and Conmel, and they're like, oh, we were flying on here, and then like we were attacked by a Klingon ship with Ferengi ship with Klingon weapons.
Hey, you're pronouncing Ferengi correctly this time.
Yeah, because I spelt it phonetically in my notes.
I'm impressed.
And you got Tellarian correct right off the bat.
Haha. Guess who's pronouncing stuff okay-ish now? We'll see how long that lasts. Okay, so they're like, this is what's happened. They're like, okay, let's transport us back to the ship. And then, so then they're like, okay, the walls are like coming in. The ship is not stable. It's gonna explode. We are gonna probably die. And so Yar goes down to the transporter room, and it is like anxiety city there. She's trying to transport them back, but it's too unstable. And I was like, oh my god. I was nervous, even though like obviously they'll survive.
No, anyone can die on this show. Just recast them.
So, oh boy. Ooh, that always works out well.
Oh yeah.
So
look at the chief engineer.
Oh.
How many have we had now? Like 3?
When you said like replace with like a recast or whatever, I actually thought about like the Becky situation on the show Roseanne. I don't know why I just like left the Star Trek universe.
I mean, I just want to know what happened to Chief Engineer Argyle.
Oh boy, we'll never know. Or will we? No,
I don't know. Maybe he'll come back. We'll see.
So she's trying to get them on the ship. They like appear, disappear. And then we see that the vessel has exploded, but it's okay because Yar was able to get them back on the ship safely. So yay. So
yay,
they bring
commercial break.
So they bring the dying guy to the room in which he's dying, but we don't know of what or what his injuries are. He's just dying. So Worf speaks to the Klingon guys who are kind of bully him, honestly, at first.
Yeah.
And I was like, rude. Jesus. So I don't know. They're like, Worf, you were like, how are you with humans? And then later, oh my gosh, we get Worf's backstory, and I love it. Oh, Worf, this is such a good episode for him.
You finally get to know Worf a little bit, aside from him just getting angry in the background.
Do you know what though? We probably now know more about Worf than we do about anybody else.
No, you know that Tasha Yar was brought up on a planet of rape gangs, apparently.
Yeah, but that's it. I think now we know more about Worf's backstory than anybody else.
Okay, yeah.
Which
maybe,
is kind of...
maybe Data a little bit.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. Data, that's true. But I mean, like,
But that's true. We do know more about Worf than most other people.
Yeah. Okay, so then, like, we know that the Klingon guys are, like, they are sketchy. There is something not super right. Oh, okay. So then the dying guy finally dies. And Chorus, like, puts his fingers right in those guys' eyes. And if he wasn't already fully dying, I would have been like, that's so unsanitary. Take your fingers away from that guy's eyes. So then he dies. And then they start, like, howling. And
Worf copies them.
Yeah, and Worf joins in, and I was like, okay, interesting. And then we learn it's the death ritual, and honestly, I think the reasons behind it is actually fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, they're howling to, like, warn the dead that a Klingon warrior is coming. That's kind of crazy. That's kind of cool.
It's a neat cultural aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a really interesting, like, thing in there.
And, like, you know, looking into their eyes while they die and letting them die with their eyes open, I think is a really, really neat cultural aspect.
It's intense.
Klingon culture is really, really interested in death.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Well, okay.
Yeah. And they end up, like, I really become very interested in Klingon storylines later on, because I think they do something really interesting with them, because it's easy just to say they're a warrior race and kind of leave it at that, but they end up kind of doing more with it.
That's cool. I'm looking forward to learning more. Yeah. Because, like, I actually, like, these guys, though they were, like, not great, I found them really interesting. Also, are all Klingons is the rule that they have to have the worst fucking hair?
Yes.
They all have to have the worst
Yes.
hairdo.
Yes.
And they all have to be like 50 feet tall.
One thing that I will point out about Klingons is that these are, from the perspective of the show at this point in time, very early Klingons in terms of the development of the race, because they didn't really get much development in the films. They were just kind of standalone villains. In the original series...
I think this is like their second redesign.
Yeah.
At this point.
In the original series, they were inconsistent at best. Sometimes they would be the Russians. Sometimes they would be like, you know, grand warriors. Sometimes they would be, you know, tricksters. It was not consistent in the original series.
But they were always in brownface.
Yes. So this is the first time that we're really getting the way that Klingons will be portrayed for the rest of the series. It's still kind of in its, you know, beta phase, so it will change a bit going on. And they do better jobs with the hair so that in the future it'll look more like 80s metalheads than anything else.
Yeah,
Okay,
they
cool.
definitely get better at the makeup and wigs.
Yeah.
But the haircuts are questionable.
Yeah. Worf's hair is alarming.
Expect less Shakespeare and more like power metal.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, I never thought of Shakespeare to start, but...
Okay, fair. I was going to say, just because the way that the wigs are, they're so like straight and English cut, and it's like, nobody wears their hair like that. It's very 80s.
Okay. Cool. Well, okay, so they finally find out what, like, really happened. Oh my god. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Okay, so another Klingon ship shows up and they're like, hey, listen, we want your guys. They actually, like, stole that ship and killed and, like, blew up that Klingon ship. So no Ferengi here. And so they're like, okay, we need to, like, arrest these guys and send them back because I guess they're going to be executed. So Yar goes with, like, the transport team to, like, arrest them. And the most random bit. So they're, like, stopped in the hall, an elevator opens, and a little girl runs out. And, like, Chorus, like, picks up this little girl and just, like, everybody just sort of staring like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And Yara's like, we have a hostage situation. And I was like, I don't know. He's not like, he's just holding this girl weirdly. Doesn't seem very hostagey. And then he just like hands the kid to Worf, and then Worf puts her down and she goes to her mom. And I'm like, what the fuck? But yeah, so they get like arrested really easily. They get put in like an interesting jail cell with questionable walls and
Questionable security.
Yes.
yeah, they just have a bunch of dudes standing in the hallway.
Not even watching them.
Yeah, and so then they like basically MacGyver this weapon out of like shit that's like on themselves.
Yeah, that was a very weird
like
decision.
in their shoes.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like who has that much shit on them to like make a gun
Klingons.
that can like shoot fireballs at people? I mean, I like to think I'm pretty prepared. I carry a big bag with like a ton of shit in it, but I don't think I could make a gun from it. I have like a Swiss Army knife, but I mean, that's no fireball. Oh yeah, so they all get like, Conmel gets like shot by like the security when they try to escape, and then it's like a whole thing because then like Chorus busts in and is like running up to the core of the ship, that crystal thing. I should have wrote that down. I don't remember what it's called, but I
Warp
didn't.
Oh, yeah. It's not a crystal.
Oh,
Oh, wait, yeah. Sorry, the dilithium crystals, which are...
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that guy.
There's just like, the whole engine isn't crystals. There's just like a little drawer where they put the crystals.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was very intense. So Worf is like, let me do it. And Yara's like, don't. Let it de-escalate itself. And Worf's like, no, let me do it. And then Worf goes in to the chamber to talk to Chorus. And that scene was like intense. They like plead their cases, and Worf is like, I'm not like you. I have different priorities, but also I have a different point of view in what a warrior is, and you're not a warrior. And then he shoots him, and then Chorus goes through the glass floor and then hits another glass floor and like, and he's dead. And then Worf does the ritual thing again where he howls, and I was like, oh my god.
And they do the really, really weird zoom cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they have to like talk to that other guy from the other Klingon ship and be like, yeah, everybody died. And then he's like, hey Worf, you ever want a job when you're finished with the Enterprise, come join me. And Worf's like, yeah, okay, thank you. And then Picard is like, okay. And he's like, don't worry, I was just being polite. And he's like, okay, good. And then we're back to flying and carrying on. And you know what though, honestly, I think this is the first time that this felt like something changed.
Oh.
Yeah.
To me, it
Okay.
didn't feel like we continued on, but this episode to me, and I think it's maybe because it didn't have like a bunch of plots, it just had one thing going on.
This was a character arc.
Yeah.
I actually really liked this episode.
Good.
It felt like something like, yeah, because it's character, like it felt like something happened. Worf got to go through a journey, and I think like he's in a different place from when we started that episode.
Yes,
So
definitely.
now,
Definitely.
like, I don't think there's like, this is yeah, seriously, it feels like the first episode where something has changed, and going forward, it's like it's not the same. And I'm like, oh my god, whoa! Like, it wasn't a funny. It just whoa.
Yeah, because definitely we are in a different place after that episode because we know so much more about Worf. Because
Yeah.
before then, he was like barely a side character.
You got to pop in for some stuff.
But that's interesting because I've always like, I like this episode, it's fine, but I never felt it was that important. But I think that maybe because I already knew about Worf and Klingon culture and stuff, so it was kind of just old news to me.
There are much better explorations of this same topic on his character going onwards.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it just, because they established in this, because I don't think we didn't know prior to this that like Worf was not raised with the Klingons.
That's true. They didn't mention it before this.
So we now know that like he grew up with humans and went to the, like, obviously we know he went to the academy because he's on the ship, but like we know more of his backstory, that he wasn't as exposed to Klingon customs and traditions and whatnot. And so him being finally like realizing how similar like he is to these guys, but he's able to control certain things, and it just like I suppose awakens to him to like, you know, what his people are like more personally versus like, you know, when you're, I assume with like the Enterprise or like in Starfleet, the Klingons seem like they're probably more times than not the bad guys.
In the original series, they absolutely were, and they've definitely held that point in pop culture. However, throughout the majority of Star Trek, they're not the villains.
Yeah, but definitely at this point in the series, as far as anyone knows, like, Klingons are the bad guys. They were established as the bad guys in the original series, and sort of in the movies. I don't think They
haven't done any of the films yet where they're not the villains.
Yeah.
However, it is established in this episode there is an alliance.
Yeah, but it seems to be a very, like, an uneasy one.
Yeah, but that's not really surprising given who they are.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just felt, I mean, I don't know, it kind of made me think about like nature versus nurture in a way.
Yeah, they definitely go through that topic a lot with Klingons. But keeping in mind that was a very topical part of discussion when this episode would have been made.
Legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, Dory, your views on it definitely lend like a whole new perspective to this episode. Being like someone who doesn't already know what happens later on and stuff like that. Seeing this episode and being like, oh yeah, this is finally like, it feels like we got to know someone on the ship.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Worf before, but now that I know more about him, I like him even more. I just find him so much like so interesting, and he just, I don't know. It just feels like there's consequences to this episode in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll give you a good little tidbit of information in the backstory then. The director who did this episode was just as excited to do the episode as you clearly have been from watching it. I feel like that really comes out in the episode, that like the person who directed it was very interested in the subject matter.
Yeah, I just thought like the episode was just really well done too.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't write a ton of notes because first it wasn't a funny episode, so like there wasn't a lot of like lulz moments.
That's true.
But I also the fact that there was just one plot, I think really helped.
Yes.
Yes,
And
focused it.
we just like we kept on track the whole time. And I don't know, I think like I don't know, I think this might be one of my like top episodes of the season so far.
For
told
first
us,
season episode, it is really good.
I mean, this actually, my mom was asking me yesterday because I told her I had to watch an episode for the podcast, and she was like, are you enjoying the show? And I was like, I mean, I think if I was watching it on my own, I would have stopped a while ago.
Yeah.
But I love doing it for the podcast, and I've been assured by multiple people that it does get better. And honestly, and I talked to her about this before I watched the episode, and after watching it, I'm like psyched now. Like
Nice.
I enjoy it for the podcast. It's fun. I don't dislike the show. Don't get me wrong. I do not dislike the show. I enjoy watching it, but I tend to like, I don't know if it would have drawn me in the same way, but I'm like, I don't know, this episode has got me kind of psyched because like if this is the kind of storytelling, I really enjoyed it.
Good.
I have a lot, because then also if we also learn more about Geordi.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We also like, and they throw that in, and it's so seamless. They get to talk about, oh yeah, and we've got this new thing we're working on where like the bridge can see what Geordi sees,
And we never see it again.
we don't.
I think we
that
see it in
seems
like one episode, like 4 seasons down the line.
well, I don't know. It's cool. I do
Yeah.
think it's really nice that we can finally see what Geordi sees.
It's an expensive effect, to be fair.
I mean, yeah, I can imagine. But I think, though, we definitely get a better look and more insight into these characters. of what they're actually working with. And at this point, like, yeah, I find Geordi and Worf more interesting than like Riker.
You just haven't had a good Riker episode yet.
Yeah, I mean, Riker's been, as I like to call him,
He's been there.
He's like a bro Ken doll at this still.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just this backstory and just learning more personal stuff about these people have really, for what's it? I can't remember the saying. It's like tickle something. I don't remember.
Tickles your fancy?
Yes, tickles my fancy. Oh God, but that sounds so graphic. Oh no, okay. I don't know. It just like touches my heart. We'll say that. Yeah.
So, do you remember how last episode, Coming of Age, I mentioned that Maurice Hurley had sort of taken over the reins of the show from Gene Roddenberry?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So this would have been the first episode that he was more heavily involved in as head writer, because as he was like taking over the reins of the show with Coming of Age, he's like, okay, well, this is the direction we're going to go, blah, 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 etc. This is the first one that he actually wrote the full teleplay for himself.
Is this when like Gene Roddenberry was on like vacation or whatever, and he just kind of mutinied?
Yeah, he had a 2-week vacation, and this would have been the second week of vacation. So Maurice Hurley was more situated in his position at this point in time. Also, he would take over like for the rest of this season and the next one anyway. So if you watch interviews of him, you'll see that he's probably a little bit of a bullshitter. But at the same time, he was clearly very interested in what he was doing with the series. Like, if somebody talks to him for just a few minutes, he will sit there and bombard you with ideas for like, oh, you mentioned like this theory? Okay, how can we explore this as backstory? How can we, introduce a more like complex element to the show? And he was really, really fascinated with trying to take this show that had been popular in the 60s and make it a more complex form of television. And this is definitely a good example of that, where it wasn't about just showing us a character for, a little bit longer than usual. This was actually about exploring what the consequences of this universe that they're all living in are, because it's about exploring Klingon culture, in addition to exploring Worf as a character. And like the original series background characters like Uhura, Sulu, Chekhov, they never got an episode like this. Not at any point in the series did they have their own episode.
Yeah, that's true. We never really delved into... We delved into Spock, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, we delved into Spock, McCoy, and Kirk. I don't think we really had that deep of an episode with Scotty, but he was often there, but he wasn't like part of the trifecta of the original series characters. But here, we're actually beginning to explore the backstories of these characters that they're not nameless, but they are secondary characters. So we get both Geordi and Worf being explored in this one. So yeah, I think that Maurice Hurley taking on the reins of the show was definitely a good direction for it. I'm glad he wasn't the one who stayed on it for good, because as we see going into the third season, things will get quite a bit stronger afterwards. But he had the right ideas, I think, and they as you're seeing, are beginning to take the series in more interesting directions already.
Okay, so it does sort of, I mean, I don't know a ton about original series, but it does seem like this is, like, TNG is more of an ensemble.
Yes, absolutely.
Versus, like, focused on a couple of main people.
Yeah, the original series is not an ensemble cast. It's 3 main characters, 1 secondary main character, and then several background characters who get a few lines, but they are never explored.
Yeah, I'd say, like, Bones is, like... I wouldn't say he's a B character, but he's not an A character.
No, but he does get his own episodes occasionally.
Yeah. He's definitely it's definitely, on original series, it's definitely like a 1A, 1B.
Yes.
With Kirk and Spock. And that's pretty much, I think the only reason Spock got to that level is because his character became so popular.
I think that could be true, yeah. Also, they liked exploring him. Like, clearly the writers who were writing episodes for him were interested in him.
Oh, for sure. Like, he's a very interesting character.
Yeah, and even in the films, he gets, like, so much more exploration that focuses on him, and you get still nothing from the side characters.
Yeah, because I think Spock is interesting in a way that Worf is interesting, just to bring it back around, because Spock is half human. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of fighting with those two sides of himself.
Fish out of water.
Yeah, and Worf is a Klingon raised by humans. So you kind of, and this episode touches on it, you get that whole really being kind of separated from your culture.
Yeah,
a bit.
Yeah, you definitely get that. I know they wanted Data to be like the Spock of this series, and for the most part he is.
Definitely.
But they got themselves some interesting other directions to go with in both Worf and Deanna Troi, because she, again, half human and has that, like, you know, mixed culture backstory, but they don't end up exploring that nearly as often.
Yeah, it's really kind of, for Troi, it's really inconsequential that she's half human. All it means is that her powers aren't as strong as other Betazoids.
Really? What I was going to say is that all it means is that her mom gets to be snarkier at her.
Yeah, I found that interesting in this episode that they brought up the sort of, how do I put it? Like, raised outside your native culture thing. Like, not being around your people.
Yes.
From birth. And it kind of, like, it goes to explain later on why Worf is just so Klingon. He really tries to embrace the culture, like, a lot, because that's his kind of only connection to it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the two main things they touch on are what it's like not to have a connection to, that intimate connection to your culture and your people and that kind of thing. And the other thing is not being able to move along with the times. Because that's the whole reason those guys are on the ship, is because they don't like the alliance with the Federation.
Yeah, it's a criticism of, like, conservatism, basically.
Yeah, because they don't seem to hate the Federation. Like, it doesn't seem to be a matter of hating the Federation, it just seems to be a matter of they don't like that it's peace rather than war.
Yeah, they don't feel that their culture is benefiting from this. They feel that it's regressing.
Yeah, exactly. They feel like they're betraying what it is to be Klingon. You know? And they basically just say, like, oh, we're all pussies now.
They definitely do basically come out and say that. But I've noticed that their dialogue in this episode is definitely not consistent with the way that Klingons talk in the future. They're very...
No.
They're much more articulate here than they're shown to be going forward. And I do feel like the kind of criticism they bring up in DS9 where Klingons eventually end up kind of becoming a bit of a parody of themselves. The tongue-in-cheek thing that Ezri says, if you recall.
Oh, yeah.
I love that moment. But, yeah, Dory, no spoilers in that. But as they develop Klingon culture, they definitely lean more in on the aggressive portion of it, and they get their actors to reflect that a lot better. And I think in some cases it works. It does depend on the episode. Sometimes it becomes a little bit of a parody of itself, just as the series one day acknowledges. But for the most part, I'd say it works fairly effectively, which is good.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've said before on the podcast that I don't particularly enjoy TNG Worf.
Yes.
But I love the Klingon episodes of TNG.
Yes. I find that the like the two-parters that Worf gets, especially, are the ones that, like, really stand out. And they are some of TNG's best two-parters that aren't like, oh, the whole crew's at risk. Ooh.
Yeah. It's very... And his storyline has consequences throughout the series.
It does. You hear that, Dory?
Yes. I love consequences.
We also get a lot of Klingon politics.
Oh.
Which I personally love, because I like the way they did it. And
Same, dude. Same.
Yeah, I find political intrigue interesting.
Yes. So, Dory, they actually mentioned another race here that will connect this early on in the episode.
Is it the Romulans?
Yes. Yes, so we haven't met them yet in the series. We met them in the original series twice, I think, maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
It was only twice.
They weren't, like, the hugest deal in the original series, if I remember correctly.
No, they barely explore them. We only see them those couple of times. If they are in the series a third time, then it's like an inconsequential third time. I think that they have like 2 major appearances, and that was it. Mm-hmm. They definitely get more in TNG, because as they decide to focus away from the Ferengi being the big bad guys and the fact that the Klingons are not the big bad guys in TNG, they're like, maybe we should find a different big bad guy. And for some of it, they end up leaning on the Romulans, which, for the most part, I think the way that TNG does it is fairly effective, but you will see that as we go on with it.
That's Eric Bana in the movies, right?
Yes, he is the least Romulan in, like, he might as well have just been a guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There was nothing exclusively Romulan about him besides the fact that his ears were pointed, but that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole weird thing of, like, there's actually, like, a Star Trek comic book that explains the whole reason the movie happens, like was it 2009?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have the comic. It's not great, but yeah, also it came out that long ago.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Anyway, like, you shouldn't have to do homework for a movie.
No.
But but yeah, the events are pretty convoluted.
Quite accurate. But dropping the hint of the Romulans was an intentional decision of Maurice Hurley in this episode. He wants people to remember their name because, as I mentioned, he's kind of forward-thinking when it came to developing the series as a more complex kind of series, and that was one of the things that he will continue to drop tidbits into. And because that's something that he wants to explore, is the Romulans.
Yeah, because the show is episodic, but there's certain things that happen that do end up having consequences later on.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Consequences.
Schmonsequences.
That's what makes a show interesting, is the consequences.
On that note, I do like the choice to make the Klingons so, like, articulate and almost, I would say, like, stage presence worthy in their...
Yeah, they're definitely a little Shakespearean.
Yeah, and I did enjoy that. I don't think it necessarily fits with everything that we see them go on with, obviously, but in Star Trek VI, we see them portrayed very similarly. They're much less aggressive. They're far more articulate in their communication, and I think it works for them, but at the same time, it kind of makes them less believable. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but as maybe it's just the way that these actors did it, but the way that they're carrying themselves and the way that they deliver lines is like, nah, I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. You're not a real person.
I personally didn't get that. I actually quite liked the way the actors portrayed the characters in this episode.
Well, it's like I said, I liked it, but I wasn't buying it 100%, and that could just be my, like, bias because of how well I know how Klingons are portrayed later on. I don't know, Dory, what did you think of their delivery in this episode? Did you notice that they did come off differently than everyone else?
Honestly, I don't think I even noticed.
No? Okay.
Honestly,
okay.
yeah.
I mean, that's good.
I didn't think much of it.
Okay.
I thought the actors were great, especially the guy who played Chorus. Like, high fives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly didn't notice how they spoke.
Okay. I mean, that's good then, because that means that Maggie, our interpretation of how they're carrying themselves is kind of weighted by the fact that we know how Klingons carry themselves otherwise.
Yeah, and see, I didn't, even knowing that, it didn't seem that out of place to me, because these are guys who are very much invested in the old ways. Right. Okay. They're very much invested in how Klingons were.
They're conservatives.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I just remembered. Okay. For what you're I kept thinking when you're discussing this, I kept thinking like voices in terms of like, did they have an accent or the way that like they said stuff? And I'm realizing you mean like the dialogue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm slow with this. Yeah, I think not the whole time, but I do think like here and there was, especially Chorus's like last like kind of bit on the in the chamber thing with Worf, where he was like something about like he's like, I tasted your heart, like that
yeah,
speech
and he
stuff.
speaks about the traitors of Kling, which Yeah, Kling
yeah.
is not a name that they keep.
Yeah, I did notice that a little bit.
Yeah, I wrote that down in my notes that they're still saying Kling for the home world.
For the record, the Klingon homeworld in the original series is never directly referenced, I don't think. Not by name. This may be the first time that it's been mentioned in series. I do know that there is a...
Oh, the video game.
yeah, there's a really great voice-acted video game that came out years after this that was based on the original series, and it had all of like the original series actors reportraying their roles in it. And the computer in the game, you can like talk to it for a bunch of like lore information and whatnot. And it mentions that the Klingon homeworld is named Kling, which is not something that's accurate in terms of the rest of the series. So I find it interesting that they were still going with that here because they hadn't really decided on its name yet.
Yeah.
Sorry, when you said lore, I was picturing like lore.
Oh.
Oh,
Data and lore.
no. Good lore, not evil lore.
I know what you mean, but that was the first thing that popped in my head, and I was like, they tell you more stuff about lore? Why?
I mean, that would be hilarious if, you had got to hear Spock talking about lore and data.
Yeah, I know you meant. That's what my brain went to.
Yes, I pretty explicitly remember it stating the very short sentence, their homeworld is Kling. And I'm just like, no, it isn't. Fuck you.
Yeah, probably because they realized that Kling sounds stupid.
It could be. It could be that they just wanted to complexify things a little bit. It's worth noting that in this episode, while Klingon language has been kind of developed by this point in Star Trek, the person who had been developing it as a language was not on set for this and was not called on set for this, so they just kind of made things up. But they also don't say very much in Klingon, so it's not too much of a problem.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Dory, Klingon is like a legit language.
Yeah, it's fully developed for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
It's like
they have a linguist on board.
Yeah, you can learn Klingon. There's actually a Duolingo option to learn Klingon.
Okay, I mean, I know that they make up languages that are like pretty extensive for TV shows and whatnot. Like, because I know like in movies, like I think Lord of the Rings, they've got like a whole
Elvish is a
stuff.
language.
And I know in Game of Thrones, they made up like, I think Dothraki or something. And then, so like that doesn't surprise me that they make like a whole thing. What does surprise me is that Duolingo. It's on Duolingo. That's so funny. I mean, that's cool though. That's really neat that it's made like such a big like impression on the world that like it's in Duolingo. That's pretty great. Honestly, that's rad.
Yeah,
that's rad.
Because it's there's this thing called conlangs, which are constructed languages, and Klingon is the most complete and most spoken conlang.
Oh, cool.
Because it's basically because it's been around for so long, and there were so many people invested in learning it and developing it and like keeping it going and that kind of thing.
Well, not just that, but unlike in things like Lord of the Rings or whatnot, there was a persistent world that continued to use it.
Yeah.
Because, Star Trek ran on the air for, 18 uninterrupted years. And in that time, it was being used in every series.
Yeah.
So they had very good reason to, continue developing it. And it also got its most development, like, in the height of the Star Trek popularity in, like, the mid-90s. So, yeah.
I don't remember where I heard this story. I think it was most likely one of, like, the documentaries about, like, Star Trek culture and fans and stuff like that.
Oh, the Trekkies docs, yeah.
Yeah. So there's this one story where these two people met at, like, I don't remember how they met. It doesn't matter. Anyway, the guy was American, and I think the woman was French, and she didn't speak English and he didn't speak French, but they both spoke Klingon. So that's how they communicated for like the first year of their relationship.
That's amazing.
That's actually beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love that so much. I love that. Oh, that almost makes me want to learn another language.
Yeah.
Well, you can learn Klingon.
No, I do want to learn another language, but I'm just really bad with languages.
That's fair.
Yeah. I was attempting to learn Japanese for a while, but then I just fell out of the habit.
Time to fall back in.
Oh, I've tried to learn French a billion times. It's not working.
Yeah. Even though we can just read the cereal box, the back of the cereal box.
I can read more French than I can speak.
Mm-hmm.
And because I just learned all conjugating verbs through most of my years learning French. I actually tried to learn French on Duolingo years ago, but I had to stop because it was I was doing it on the bus, my commute from work, and it was taking up all of my data on my phone. So I had to stop because I was like, oh, I'm going over my, I have to pay extra for when I overuse it. So I had to keep paying a little extra. And I was like, nope, it's not worth it. French is not worth this extra bit of money.
For the record, Duolingo, at least now, allows you to download future lessons when you're on Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I've heard that. Wow, English, fail me now. Yeah, I've heard that it's easier to use now, and I'm contemplating downloading it again and attempting French, or honestly, at this point, Spanish might be more relevant. Which sounds random.
That's fair. I mean, I've been using it for over a year, and we'll give it glowing reviews.
If you learn French, you can get a government job.
That's true.
No thanks.
Well, you don't want to be the prime minister?
No. To be fair, I don't think anybody would vote me in to be prime minister.
Well, you never know.
I mean, can you imagine next election I'm on the write-in ballot? No, is that a thing? We don't do write-ins, do we?
No.
No, because then we vote for our local people.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I'll never be prime minister.
Yeah.
Vote Dory. I know less than the current prime minister, but at least I'm aware of it.
But at least, yeah.
See, in Canada, we don't tell our children that they can grow up to be prime minister because, frankly, we want better for them.
Quite accurate.
Full disclosure, that is not my joke, but I don't remember where I heard it.
Credit to some comedian on Just for Laughs.
Yeah,
maybe.
it was probably Just for Laughs. Because I used to watch the shit out of that.
Yeah, I think we all kind
me
of did.
too. Not gags though.
No, not
pranks.
gags.
Well, I mean, maybe the Americans didn't. I don't know what they saw. I don't know if the Americans got it. I think it might have just been broadcast on Canadian channels.
Oh yeah.
Well, they're missing out. Well, no. Well, they played it on Comedy Central, didn't they?
I don't know.
Yeah, but
I didn't have Comedy Central.
Neither did I. But
well, Americans they have Comedy Network, which is different.
yeah.
I mean, they basically played all the same shows.
But then how would any of the Americans know who Russell Peters is?
Wait, I thought it was the other way around. I thought we had the Comedy Network and they had Comedy Central.
Oh yeah, it is the other way around. Wait,
Yeah.
is it?
I don't know. It doesn't matter.
They're the same shit.
Yeah, basically.
Except that we have some, CanCon.
They're like fraternal twins.
Yeah, we have 30% Canadian content.
Well, all you need to know if you don't know what Just for Laughs is it's just stand up. They have like a comedy festival in Montreal every year, and they film
They also
some of
do
the.
in Toronto.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah, I've been a few times. It's
Yeah.
great.
I think it started in Montreal though.
Oh yeah. I think that that's where they do the recordings. I don't think they record any of the Toronto ones.
But yeah, basically they just rebroadcast some of the acts.
Yes.
Just for Laugh Gags is
Not
I
funny.
fucking hate it. I hate it.
it's like the worst thing ever. It's the worst.
It's the worst thing ever.
It truly is.
I hate pranks. I hate pranks with such a passion. And I hate watching people like be in these. It's like those there's this TV show where it's like What Would You Do or something, and I hate watching those as well.
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's just putting people in these really terribly awkward scenarios. And it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah, because you're
it's
making
just-
people think that something really fucked up is happening. At least on What Would You Do?
Yeah.
On Just for Laugh Gags, it's all the stupidest shit you could ever think of.
They're dad joke pranks.
Yeah, they're baby pranks. Like, it's just really dumb. And also, like, I hate, like, YouTube pranks are, like,
Yeah.
fuck YouTube pranks. Like, they're just awful. But, like, at the bare minimum, they try to, like, have a reaction. You know? And Just for Laugh gags, it's just people looking mildly confused, basically.
Well, music is playing.
Accurate.
Yeah.
Because there's you don't hear anything. There's no dialogue. It's just music.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
sound
that they
effects
can
the whole
display it
time.
in both English and French, so that they don't need to
yeah.
translate anything.
No, that makes sense. It's just not. I hate pranks.
Yeah.
I hate April Fools. I hate pranks. The only joke that I used to enjoy is my brother used to send me a text message on April Fools that just said, "I'm pregnant." And that I enjoyed. He hasn't done it for a while, but yeah, I used to like that. But that's the extent of the pranks that I find are okay. Otherwise, I fucking hate pranks.
Conclusion, Just for Laugh gags is the worst
Shit.
thing ever made.
Accurate conclusion.
That's our sidetrack of this episode.
Yeah.
It's Just for Laughs pranks.
I don't know how we got here.
I don't.
Oh yeah, something else I wanted to mention. This is the first appearance of a replicator.
Oh, wait. Are you sure?
Oh, is that when they the magic, like the drink and the food appears?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I had a question about that too. I was like, what the fuck is that? Is that magic?
Yeah, that's a replicator. I'm pretty confident this is the first appearance. At least in this series.
And
I feel like we saw it once before, but I'm
So, like,
I'm
No,
not sure
because
now.
we discussed in one episode how we haven't seen one yet. And I don't think we've seen one since.
So is it basically to just like you tell it what you want and then
Yeah.
it just gives it to you?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
It's like the ship genie.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a second I didn't realize it was a machine and I was like, I'm sorry, the Klingon magic.
No, that's a replicator.
Okay, very cool.
It basically, like, what's the explanation of it? It basically, like, rearranges material into whatever form it wants.
Mm-hmm.
So the implication of that is that it's just reconstituted shit.
Gross.
Yeah, basically it just, like, yeah, it doesn't come from nowhere. It basically, like, rearranges matter into whatever form you request.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's at least
And then depending on plot, there's certain things that can't be replicated.
okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right,
It
that's
is very
one question I
inconsistent.
can like cross off here. I do have actually a question, another one rather. What they mentioned, Worf says like before the age of inclusion. What is the age of inclusion? Like what age is? Do we know this? Do we ever find that out? Like,
No,
because it's
we
how
don't.
old?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. I'm sure
we
if
know
you
it's
looked it
young,
up on,
but-
like, Memory Alpha, it could tell you, but
No, I'm pretty sure that they don't actually mention what the age of inclusion is specifically. They're also notoriously bad at being consistent with like how Klingons age. So there's that.
yeah.
Worf's like 70. I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
I think it was just, like,
Trying to just say that he's young. He was young without saying he was young.
yeah, they're just trying to say that he was young and maybe give us, like, try to make it, like, alien-like,
Okay.
you know? Make it,
Interesting.
like, culturally different. It was, like, basic, like a Klingon bar mitzvah is how I'm interpreting it, you know?
Aw, cute.
Or
Oh,
quinceanera.
I would like to point out regarding replicators, they didn't actually name it yet.
No, they didn't.
So it worked, it did a thing, but they didn't say what it is.
Yeah, I think in the third episode, when they're the racist one, when they're on the planet and they need the vaccine,
Racist one.
I think Dr. Crusher mentions that they've tried to replicate it, but they were unsuccessful.
Yeah, but they might not have tied in the word with the technology yet at this point in the
Yeah.
series.
Definitely. So I think they've definitely mentioned the technology, but
Yes.
I think pretty sure this is the first time we see it.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Yeah, because since that episode where you mentioned we haven't seen a replicator yet, I've been sort of paying attention to whether we see one or not.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair.
Yeah, so I'm fairly confident.
It's funny,
this is the first one.
They had the budget for that, and yet partway through the Geordi scene at the beginning, the thing randomly cuts out due to, like, budget convenience.
Yeah. Oh, also...
Geordi, we've lost the transmission. I'm surprised it worked this long, but, we ran out of budget in the episode.
Also, did you notice that when they're beaming onto the ship, they cut it off before the transporter starts going?
No, but what I did notice is that when they step on the transporter pad at the beginning of the episode, you can see the plastic below them flex, specifically under Riker.
I didn't notice that.
And I'm just like, oof, Mr. Big Guy Riker.
But it's so weird because I'm so used to them showing, like, energized, and then you see the effect, and then they cut to the other location, and you see them come in. But they cut before they started the effect on the Enterprise.
I don't know. That's really weird.
Yeah, I noticed it because they do a hard cut they still put the sound effect that they were about to transport, but then they immediately cut to the other location. And
maybe it's another budget choice.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
Okay. Do we have any favorite moments?
Yes.
I do, but there's a couple things I wanted to bring up that aren't necessarily, like, favorite.
Yeah, go ahead.
They're just points I wanted to make.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are petty things, but...
Oh boy.
First off, they beam over to the ship with no protective equipment. Data's like, there's this dangerous gas, and it's like, is it toxic? And he's like, not yet. Like, it hasn't reached toxic levels, and it's like, yeah, maybe, like,
No, we'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, maybe you guys should have worn masks or helmets or some kind of suit on a ship you knew was, like, all messed up and fucked up. I never understand that. They just beam in places with no protection.
Yep.
And then also, we've kind of established that they're filming everything always.
Yes.
Except the away crew.
Yes. Well, that's because they don't have cameras on the other ship.
Yeah. but I love how, like, this is the future and they haven't figured out to, like, slap a GoPro on someone. Like, the crew still has to, like, verbally describe what they're seeing.
Right.
Instead of, like, bringing some kind of camera with them. And it's the future. They could have totally just, like...
invented something.
Like, have it attached to the tricorder. Like, like a smartphone. You just fucking show them with your camera. Those are my little gripes.
And that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing is, if Chorus wasn't gonna take that girl hostage, why did he pick her up?
Oh, for dramatic effect.
Like, what was his plan? What was he...
To show he could pick up a child. Look how intimidating I am, holding a child awkwardly.
Yeah.
I'll show that kid who's boss.
And then Worf gets kind of pissy that... I mean, I understand why. Like, because of his personal feelings, but it was a perfectly reasonable reaction that Tasha Yar had, in my opinion, to be like, we have a hostage situation here. Like, like, because she does that after he picks her up. Mm-hmm. So I don't think Worf is justified in being mad at her for assuming that.
I do think that scene is really interesting because Worf doesn't really pick a side.
Yeah.
And he sort of stands in the middle, and it's like, oh, this is Worf's Sophie's Choice moment. But he doesn't pick a side, and I found that really interesting. I didn't find that bad. It kind of was like, he's obviously conflicted. We know that. And that, like, the stuff that these guys are saying kind of, like, makes sense to a point, but not, like, completely. So I did like that he had the conflict there and didn't just didn't really do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than trying to like, so then at the end when he makes his decision, it just feels more organic. I don't know. Just Worf had a good arc in this. It didn't feel forced or just.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also was hoping to get into the aspect of, you know, people not moving along with the times and like how that still very much relates to now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely an issue that is something that is always topical.
Yeah, I imagine that will always be relevant because the times they are a changing always.
Oh, I get it. That's the song.
Ah.
That's very clever. I appreciate your humor.
Yeah. It's just
Thanks,
like
Bob Dylan.
yeah. It's like we don't, I mean, we get to know these guys so we kind of get it, but it's just like
I mean, they are kind of trying to show it specifically because they want to create conflict for Worf, and like
Yeah.
that much is clear that they're exploring it more from a character perspective than they are from an actual like social critique perspective.
yeah, but I do think that it works as a social critique also because they're trying to show them in a little bit of a sympathetic way, being like, you know, not condoning it, but showing where they're coming from.
Yeah. In the end, like, both Worf and the other Klingon kind of side with them, kind of, but at the same time saying that, like, you know, this has its place.
Yeah.
And I get it, but it's not happening.
Yeah. I think they both, like, Worf and the other Klingon that we see, who's the captain of the other ship, they both sympathize, and they both even say, like, there's part of me that, like, longs for that time, but I think they still both understand that that time has passed.
Yeah.
You know, because even Worf isn't, like, Worf doesn't say they're right. He's just like, you know, don't execute them in dishonor. Like, at least let them have some dignity. You know,
Yeah.
because he's not saying it's right, but he's like, you know, they're not entirely wrong.
Yeah.
Which, as like for this story, I agree with, but as like a social thing, I sort of disagree with. It's like, I definitely understand where some people are afraid that things are changing and are different, but you still have to, you know,
Like, it's inevitable. It's coming. So
Yeah.
you either make peace with it or you get left behind, basically.
yeah, essentially.
And if you get left behind, it's not going to end well.
Yeah, and then
Accurate.
and then there's also people who don't want things to change for very bad reasons,
Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah.
because they still like being racist or homophobic or transphobic or et cetera, et cetera.
Well, on a lighter topic, there is a I don't know if this was like a lapse in how they were thinking about, or they just like they didn't really carry it on to its logical conclusion the correct way, but when the other Klingons admit to Worf that they're the ones who took over the ship and they destroyed another ship and it was another Klingon ship, Worf is literally outraged. Mm-hmm. And they immediately follow that with, want to give us a tour of the ship? And he's just like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Worf, they just admitted to treason. And you're just like, yeah, sure, I'll show you around this definitely not security risk place.
Yeah. I think that was to show that he's still, like, kind of on their side a bit.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that they didn't really follow
Yeah.
it to its logical conclusion the correct way.
That's the one thing about the acting that I didn't like, is that I didn't think that Michael Dorn played it as he was being convinced.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, because I haven't seen this episode in a long time, so I thought that I didn't remember exactly what happened, and I thought that Worf was, like, deliberately spying on them, deliberately trying to figure out what their plans were and what what actually happened.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't think he was actually, like, agreeing with them and, like, being convinced. That was kind of my personal interpretation of what was happening.
That's fair.
I didn't think it came off as, like, he was being swayed by what they were saying.
I think I agree with that.
I really loved the final scene in the warp core when they're both that kind of final standoff. I thought that was just...
That was something that was something that the director actually like kind of handcrafted that part of the episode, because originally it was meant to be much less interesting, I guess. It was just supposed to be like down at the lower part of the warp core, and he worked in this thing to actually use the rest of the set that they at that point had not used in the series at all, and he was just like, hey, let's do some like cool verticality to this. Let's do like a falling from grace kind of scene.
It also works in that they're kind of in private, basically. Like the crew isn't there like watching, so it can just be like Klingon to Klingon, It's just us. Yeah. All in the family. You are my brother. You are my brother, Anakin!
Oh, God. Yeah, like their little speeches were, so good. Like a part of choruses, it's the, I have tasted your heart. You've been with them, but you are still of us. Do not deny the challenge of your destiny. Get off your knees and soar. Open your eyes and let the dream take flight. It's like, okay, dream journal. But...
yeah, nobody talks like that.
But I kind of loved it.
I really liked it, yeah. And I loved Worf's whole point of like, you talk about the warrior code, you talk about like glorious battle and legends that we'll write and all that stuff. But where are the words, I think he says like, where are the words honor and loyalty and that kind of thing? And he's like, the true challenge is within, not without, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
and that is something they acknowledged about his character earlier on too. That like he is truly a warrior because he is somebody who is fighting every day these urges within himself because he lives in a different culture.
Yeah, I think Worf's line is, the true test of a warrior is not without, it is within. Here's where we meet the challenge. And he's like hitting his heart. And I was like, oh my God, Worf.
Yeah.
That's actually beautiful.
Yeah. And I think it's like one of the first like successful bits of drama in the series.
Yeah.
The funny thing is like that chorus's line is so corny, the like destiny and knees and soaring. Yeah. But honestly, like he sold me. Like it didn't feel it's ridiculous, but it didn't feel corny when he was saying it. It felt genuine.
Yeah, it's like I was buying it.
Yeah. I was like, oh damn, this is like an intense like speech off right now. Like it was really quite nice. Yeah, that was a really great scene.
Speech offs are definitely something that TNG has a reputation for.
Ooh, yay.
It's usually more Picard, but you'll get quite a few of them.
Yeah, the Picard speech definitely becomes a thing.
Ooh, nice. Love listening to Patrick Stewart talk.
That's fair. Can I give one quick little shout out to how almost unbearably cute the entire intro sequence going through Geordi's viewpoint juxtaposed with the way that Picard sees things?
Yeah.
Because that was adorable.
It was adorable. I found it cringe, not gonna lie.
I mean, so did I, but I kind of loved seeing Patrick Stewart act that excited about something, because I'm like, this is the Patrick Stewart I know from all his interviews.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, if we're talking about the beginning, I actually loved that first scene. Like, I think this is probably the longest we sort of see the crew working as a crew, because we sort of throughout seeing like, okay, let's go to this part, or like, okay, speed up, go there, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, they jump right into the action on this one.
Yeah, I loved it. It was like you really get to see the dynamics working like before there's a conflict. And it's like that. It was kind of a really good way to start off the episode. It just, I don't know, just felt normal, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I really like that. I've got one other favorite part of the episode, and it's so minor, but it's probably the only time I laughed, and it's not an intentional funny bit. It's not funny, but I laughed. So there's a part where I think it's just after that third Klingon guy dies. So they all do the howling.
Yeah.
And then Picard, Riker, and Data are kind of like grouped together by Data's seat. And he's like, it was like looking at a man like that I've never known or whatever. And the way they're sort of set up just looks like a couple of old ladies gossiping.
That's fair.
I don't know, just the image of three of them like boxed together, and Picard's like, I didn't even know him. I don't know.
I forgot about that line, and I actually found that line a little out of place because I'm like, but you don't know him.
Yeah.
You literally don't. We've barely seen you two interact.
I think the one thing that actually bothered me a little bit in this episode was there were so many times where Picard and Riker like exchanged looks that were like almost like I don't know, that they weren't sure about Worf. And I was like, you guys, we have been through this.
Yeah.
We know that he's loyal. And it looked like they were questioning. And they do this like a bunch of times throughout the episode where they just look at each other and I'm like, am I going to have to fight you? Like, I will fight you because we know that Worf is loyal. Like, we like
went
every
through this
single
with
time.
Data.
It's a part of his
like,
character.
And so, like, why are you so worried that somebody's going to turn on you like this? Like, this is the crew. They've gone through more shit. Like, if they wanted to turn on you, there'd be other opportunities. Like, we would have had that already. But they're loyal to you. So, like, or do you think that little of people that you think that in 1 second, like Data and Worf, like, they're going to just like, well, I'm suspicious. I'm turning on you. Like, do you have that little faith?
Yes, they do.
In your crew? Like, that's kind of it's a little upsetting. And I think that was like, for me, I did not like that.
In some fairness, it takes them longer to get to that point with Worf than they did with Data.
Yeah,
like,
with Data, it was like a few episodes in.
No. Like, no, what I mean is, like, further into the episode. With Data, the second they found lore, it's like, can we trust Data?
Yeah.
At least
That's true.
At least,
yes.
at least it took them like a bit of time to be like kind of questioning Worf a little bit, and they don't like they don't get as suspicious of him as they did of Data.
I don't know. I just like, trust your fucking crew, Picard.
Yeah.
They can't.
Stop like exchanging looks with Riker. Like, it just seems bitchy almost. Like, they're the mean girls.
Yeah. It also seems like maybe a little racist, because it's like,
yeah, I was about to say,
just because like he's Klingon and they're also Klingons, that he'll have like divided loyalties or whatever.
Ooh, I hate that. I do not like that.
Yeah, I don't think the story was saying that, because like it makes sense with given Worf's backstory and stuff, but I think like Picard thinking that is a little questionable.
yeah, I agree.
All right, so with that, we should get into predictions. So, the next episode is called The Arsenal of Freedom. and your little tidbit is that the Enterprise meets the most annoying salesman ever. And full disclosure, I hate this episode.
Arsenal of Freedom?
Yeah.
Yeah, get it? Like you know, America's military.
I was just gonna say, why does this sound American? Oh boy. Okay, well, okay, so he's from one of the stores in the mall on Enterprise. No, I'm kidding. I know there's no mall.
I know you're convinced that the ship stores exist, but
I choose to believe it, along with Dory. I choose to believe there's a mall.
I just love the idea that there's like a shopping center.
well, have fun
like
shopping
like
at Starfleet R Us, and there you go.
Yeah, or like a Walmart or something. Just, I do like that idea. Okay, so maybe this is a guy who, maybe it's like a medical thing. Okay. Oh, but what does that have to do with freedom? Oh, maybe it's like a psychedelic. Okay. I've got a bad theory. I've got a really bad theory, but it's really all that I can go on right now. Okay, so they stop at a place, whatever planet, to like, I don't know. I don't care the reason. They're there. And then this guy's like, hey, if you're going over to that place, can you take me to that place? And they're like, yeah, it's on the way. Fine, come with. So this guy's a salesman, but he's like, you know what? While I'm here, I might as well see if I can make some money. And he has like, yeah. it's like briefly a psychedelic drug or something that makes you like see freedom. I don't know. I don't know. It just like opens your mind, and I don't know. And people are like, buddy, we're working. This is we're the Enterprise. We're doing some shit. And he's like,
I feel like you're reaching with this a little bit.
I am. It's because I truly don't know. I truly
That's
don't
fine.
know.
That's fine.
So yeah, I've come up with, I think probably this might be my worst prediction.
Well,
Because I'm 100% wrong. I'm probably very wrong. I don't feel good about this at all.
well, if you guys want to find out how wrong of a prediction this is, you should watch the series along with us and join us for the next episode of Fully Functional, a TNG podcast.
Goodbye.